technical issues. It drove us a little late, but I would recommend we go ahead and get started because we do have a pretty full meeting tonight. So yeah, I'll get started. First, want to say up front that we don't have Jordan here tonight. He let me know today that he wasn't feeling well and would not be able to attend. So I'll be doing the facilitating on both our behalves tonight. Let's go ahead and go to slide number 2, the RAB mission.
Oh, there's a hand up. Let's see whose hand is up. So.
Yeah, Vesa, I just let you know I have to duck out at 5:30 for a hearing, but should only take like 10 minutes and I'll be back.
Okay, thanks, Asa. All right, so this is our standard RAB mission. We do have a lot to cover tonight, so I'll just go ahead and jump straight into slide 3, our agenda. Next slide, please. Thank you. So our big topic tonight is going to be the Upland OU ECA. So that's the Engineering Evaluation and Cost Analysis. We have just started the public review on that. So we're going to be talking about an overview of that tonight. We have a couple of our other regular updates on as well. So we'll be starting with a few of those. Let's go to slide 4, please, for the roll call. I know Jordan isn't here. Is Christy here? I did not see Christy, not hearing Christy. Valerie?
Present.
Asa?
Here.
Carl?
Here.
Kate?
She was here.
Kate. You still have Kate?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, I was having audio issues. I'm here.
Thank you. Mitch?
Here.
Jennifer? Not seeing, not hearing Jennifer. Andrea?
Here.
Pamela?
Yes, here.
And Sophia?
Here.
Sophia has actually let me know, I think it was yesterday or maybe it was late last week, that Sophia is planning on departing from Friends of the Columbia Gorge and has resigned from the RAB. So I went ahead and left her on the roll call because it was so very late in our slide development I didn't want to just strip her off immediately and raise the alarm bells for anyone. But I wanted to share that news tonight. I did get word that Friends of the Columbia Gorge would still like to have a RAB member and are planning to submit an application in the future. So we'll keep our eyes out on that. And as we get that, I'll send that to the RAB members for their consideration.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thank you for applying. Thank you for being part of the board for a short time. Appreciate anyone who's willing to dedicate their spare time to this.
Yeah, sorry it couldn't be longer, but I appreciate the time that I've been given.
Okay. All right, on to RAB business. First order of RAB business is approving the January 2025 RAB minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
It's Mitch. I don't know how to exactly address this, but I know I've mentioned it multiple times. But being 60 days away and then getting them and trying to remember this stuff, I'm not going to be able to approve it. I know for sure. So I don't know how the other RAB members feel, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, we do understand that it's been an issue to get these out in a timely manner. It's been very difficult to prioritize that over all the other things that we have going on. So I apologize for that. I am happy to push off the January minutes until the next meeting to give folks more time to review them, more time to look back at the meeting recording.
I guess my complaint is that there was stuff that was said in that meeting that I don't remember hearing or that's on the minutes anyhow. And so how can we really truly justify saying we're going to approve these minutes. They're going to be on records forever right now. And it's just not fair to the RAB members to have to wait this long to get the minutes. It should be something that's done and set up to where, okay, we know we've had the meeting. Let's say a week should be more than ample time to get this back to us so that we can review it. And then know at the next meeting, whether it's 60 days from there, at least we can look at it and see, do we agree with these words, the verbiage, or do we feel that it's not? So I have a hard time with it.
This is Pam T. I'll go ahead and say that I say the same thing simply because I did catch an error. I was quoted saying something that wasn't mine. So it may be difficult to remember. I mean, I caught it when I read it, but it's possible that could happen. And also, I have been sick also and haven't been able to read the minutes. So I would appreciate it sooner after the meeting than trying to wrap them up right before the next meeting. Thank you.
So I have a question. Would more time be able to resolve this question about the accuracy of the January minutes?
I don't follow Carl's question.
So what do we do now? We're gonna put the approval of the January minutes on in abeyance or stay it or hold off on approving them. But until what happens? Are we able to get to a point where they can be approved or disapproved, or do we vote to disapprove them now, or do they just stay in limbo and we don't take any action on them?
See, I see what you're saying now. Yeah. And I agree with you too. I mean, I'm confused on that too. How do we, I
Yeah.
cannot read these minutes and say, I approve this. I refuse to do that. I'm not going to do it.
So
Is there a way that you could, like I say, would more time be able to do that, or
No,
would you be
I
able
think
to
the
do
time,
that with more time?
I think the time has passed is what we need to do is get the minutes to the RAB members sooner so that it's fresh in our
Okay.
memory. We all have a lot on our plates, and waiting 60 days to say this is what happened in that meeting is not fair to the RAB, because once that becomes a documented, then that is the truth. That is what was said. That is what was done. And it's not fair, and it needs to be fixed.
So then I would say at this point, we cannot approve the January minutes, and maybe there's a motion to disapprove them and leave it at that.
If that's a possibility, I would second that motion.
There's a couple other hands up. Kate?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that it creates issues. And I know that folks have a lot of priorities they're juggling, but yeah, 60 days out is pretty difficult. And there's also the issue, like I was on family leave for the last meeting, so I was, I know the recording comes out, we can reference the recording, but I was also hoping to get a hold of those minutes sooner just to kind of be up to date on what I had missed. And so I would just, agree that if we could find, I know there's services that do transcription, and maybe like that would cut down on some of the time because someone would just have to edit the transcription according to the recording. But seems like something to shoot for.
And there is AI and Copilot and things that can help you summarize and quote.
Are there other questions?
Asa?
I was just gonna say that when I miss a meeting, I just catch the Army Corps of Engineers YouTube channel and watch the recording when it comes out. And if people are having issues with the minutes, they can use that as a reference to jog their memory if need be. Thank you.
I guess then at this point, this is Carl, I would make a motion that we disapprove the January minutes. And if it's possible, if people can review them and get comfortable with them in the future, we can revisit this decision. But right now, my motion is to disapprove the January minutes.
This is Asa.
Second.
Also, you can make a motion to table until the next meeting if it gives people to revisit the information, and that's allowed under Robert's rules. Thank you.
Would motion to second that,
Okay,
disapprove them for now. And then we can move forward and try to get this stuff to the people, to the RAB members sooner. And if not, then we disapprove it again until we get the information sooner. Having us give our time away and then have to go back and sit and listen to the recording to make sure we're hearing it's not fair. It's not even a good idea.
This is
For
Pam.
January,
I was going to say, this is Pam T, and I agree to table them until next time. I don't want to watch videos every time, but I will watch the video to verify the minutes, and we'll vote next time for January.
okay, so I've heard a suggestion to table, but I've also heard a motion to deny and a second on the motion. So, sorry, we're getting some feedback. We must have someone not on mute. I will just have to keep going. Sorry, folks. Okay, so I did hear a motion to deny the minutes, and I did hear a second, so I'm going to honor that. All in favor of that motion?
Sorry, this is Kate. Can you clarify our options for us, Megan? What
Sure.
happens if we disapprove the minutes? Like where do they stand? Like, could you just run through the options real quick?
Sorry, we have a lot of feedback. Can I ask folks when they're not talking to go on mute, please? I know that might apply to some phones as well.
What is the way to mute on the phone for folks who are on the phone?
I muted the people on the phone. If you'd like to unmute and you're participating by phone, please hit *6. We cannot unmute you on the phone.
So if folks want to deny the minutes, I am not sure exactly if we have any language on in the operating rules to tell us what exactly that means. From my perspective, that means the minutes can't be finalized and entered into the administrative record. That still means there is there's still a recording of the January RAB that would be on the YouTube channel and is linked through the RAB's website. But we would probably have to go back and review operating rules to see if there is anything specific in there that gives us guidance on what to do in the case of denied minutes. If folks want to table the minutes to review the video online and come back in May to either approve or disapprove of those minutes, we could table the issue.
Thank
So
you.
the two options I see are tabling or denying.
Can you clarify? We have one motion with a second. Was Pam's suggestion to table and watch the video a motion that needs a second?
I will make that a motion if I need to, or if I can.
I would second that if there's an agreement that that's not going to be a regular practice and that we are going to have the minutes sooner.
Hey,
Here's
just
my
a point of
argument.
order. You should finish the vote on the main motion. If it passes or fails, then address the secondary motion. Thank you.
Okay, I just wasn't sure since they both kind of came up at the same time if we should know that we have both to consider before we make a decision.
Okay, hey, it's Mitch again. My argument with that is the public doesn't know when they read the minutes of these things, the public doesn't know they need to go back and review the audio. So when we put this into a written minutes, it needs to be accurate. We shouldn't have to go as the public to go back and flounder through, as Asa suggested, we can go back and watch the thing. Well, the public doesn't know that. They're going to read the minutes of this meeting and go like, oh, well, this was said. And then they take that as the truth. And that's the problem.
I don't think they see the minutes until they're approved, do they? the public?
Yeah, that is correct. They're not until the RAB approves them are they uploaded to the administrative record.
This might be a larger discussion where if the RAB doesn't want names attributed to discussion, that can be removed. It's also sometimes hard to capture names if people don't say you can just say your first name before you ask a question, because in the recording, sometimes that is hard to identify. And that the minutes format as they've been is to capture the discussion and not as much of the technical presentation, because that's in the slides and on the YouTube channel.
So we do have a motion and a second. I'm going to recommend we go through with a roll call vote at this time so we can keep pressing forward. We do have some other important business that we want to get to today. So I'm going to go down the line with the members that I know are present today. Valerie? Sorry, let me clarify real quick. The motion, the second, is to deny the January RAB minutes. So starting at the top, Valerie?
I would approve that.
Asa?
No.
Carl? Do we still have Carl?
He was on the
Star
phone
6
and
to
muted.
unmute.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
star 6. There you go.
Yeah, Carl, we hear you.
Can you hear me now? This is Carl.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I would say no to that first motion.
So no to the first motion. Okay. Kate?
No.
Mitch?
My motion.
All right, Jennifer? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if we have Jennifer.
No, we don't.
Andrea?
No.
Pam?
No.
All right. I think I counted 2 yays, 5 nays. Kelly or Lisa, can you?
I confirm that.
Okay, great. Okay,
Now
so
we could, Robert's rules, you could entertain another motion. Then typically that would be either seconded or not. And once it's seconded, people can discuss and then call for vote. But you can't, as Asa pointed out for us, start another motion once there's one already on the table.
So I move
Megan,
that
I
we
don't think
table
I
the
was
approval of
asked.
the minutes.
Who was that?
It's me,
My motion-
Sophia. I don't think I was asked.
I apologize. I didn't hear the name of who was not asked.
Sophia?
Sophia.
Oh, Sophia, I'm sorry. I was leaving you off because but absolutely. Sophia, please.
No.
Okay. Okay, so the motion does not pass. Asa had a motion to table the minutes until next meeting. Is that correct, Asa?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I would second as a one-time event, not a practice.
Okay, understood. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey guys,
And those-
Valerie here. Do we not get discussion on pending motion?
I apologize, Valerie. I was jumping the gun. Please, any discussion?
So my question is, I was not present for the January meeting. I did read the minutes, but typically on board meetings, when I am not at a meeting, I will review the minutes, but I typically abstain from voting. I'm just trying to find out if that's appropriate or if going back and watching a video of the meeting is basically saying I was there and I'm able to approve the minutes. I'm a little confused on if that's a possibility.
Abstaining from a vote is always open to the RAB members.
I just meant, I thought I heard a board member saying that they weren't there in January. They're going to go review the actual meeting and then potentially vote. So what I'm asking is, if I'm not present and didn't participate in the discussion, I'm reviewing those minutes to see what happened. Am I then able to vote? Which in my mind seems like as if I'm there. Like I said, I typically will review them, but I abstained because I wasn't present for the discussion.
I don't think we have specific operating rules to say that, yes, that is okay, no, that is not okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other discussion of the motion?
I think this is Mitch. I think that Kate's idea is good, to say that this doesn't be an ongoing discussion that we have time and time again about getting the minutes out and how they're reviewed, and having to go for the public to go back and review the audio and then read the minutes and decipher whether it's good or bad. So I agree with Kate.
Mm-hmm. Any additional discussion from the RAB members? Okay, not hearing any, not seeing hands. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. We will table until the RAB in May. Okay, a couple items I'm going to quickly follow up on from the January RAB. The first request was regarding displays in the Oregon and Washington visitor centers. I did get some feedback on some movement of those displays. I think they're still not quite where folks want to see them. So I'm following back up with the rangers to see about getting those moved into more visible areas. I also understand that at least in the Washington side, some of the displays got kind of portioned up a little bit into different areas. So we're looking at trying to find a place that those are both visible and can be viewed together, so folks kind of get a broader understanding of what they're looking at. Another item that was requested at the last RAB was to look into some alternate locations for holding RAB meetings. We've had sort of mixed luck on that so far. One of the specific requests was, I could be mispronouncing this, Hedgewald Center in Stevenson, Washington. We have gotten a reply about pricing on that, but something has not been clear in the reply is whether that facility is actually open for meetings in the future. The reply sort of suggested otherwise, so we're getting some more information on that. Vancouver Regional Libraries is another area I've looked into to try to keep our costs fairly low, because we do have a very good price point with Cascade Locks on the cost of our meeting facilities. So we want to try to keep that value if possible while still opening it up to other areas. It's not entirely clear price-wise what we may qualify for at Vancouver Regional Libraries, but it does look like there's only a couple libraries that have any telecom equipment, and those are, looking back at my notes, the Vancouver Community Library, and I think that's it. Just looking at my back of my notes, most did not have any telecom equipment, and we do not have telecom equipment available that just can move to different locations for the core. So if we were going to consider more of those libraries as available, we would have to look at the possibility of purchasing that. And I'm not sure exactly what mechanism that could fall under at the moment, given our our new restrictions on government purchase cards. So I'd have to look into that a little bit more. There are a couple other areas that we could look into a bit more. In the city of Camas, there is a community center that may be available in the week on the weekday PM. It's not entirely clear if that is the case. We would be looking at a bit more in price, about 3 times as much as we currently pay at Cascade Locks. I have not found a great Portland location at this time. I'll continue looking into Portland and Vancouver as some of the larger cities in the area, but I was starting the search with those areas that are closer to the site itself. From there, I'll take a quick pause for any discussion or follow-up questions.
Megan Valerie here. I appreciate you considering some of the questions I had in January because I was not able to attend the meeting. And I would like to try to have those meetings out here if at all possible. And I'm happy to look at locations as well. But thank you for doing so much work on this.
Sure. Over to Mitch. Mitch, go ahead. I see you on mute right now.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, so I was wondering on the cost that you're talking about, that if some of the rural counties with the fire halls and whatnot, I wonder if that's an option to hold, because I think they have maybe the technology in those buildings, and maybe it wouldn't be a real high expense like going to the library or a city hall type of situation. I just wonder if there's a cheaper way to look at doing it, or would it be something that may be better off to do like a town hall meeting rather than a RAB meeting? So there's some way that we can get the information to the public, because nobody knows what's going on. Very few people know what's going on in Bonneville Dam. So I'm just wondering, that cost thing I hope cost isn't the factor of us getting this information to the public.
Yeah. Let me clarify. Cost is not, I'm not considering that a reason to not go out to other places. It's certainly a factor when it comes to some like particularly expensive conferencing facilities. So I am looking at those lower cost options like city halls, like libraries. Fire halls is a great suggestion, and I've noted that to look into some more.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
also I'd recommend.
Seems like a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like I think the Stevenson Grange might be a potential venue. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, that was Kate.
Thank you, Kate. Over to Sophia.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time and researching more of this and just kind of gathering costs and reporting back to us.
Yeah, absolutely. For next steps on this, I'll be contacting the Vancouver Library, the community library, to kind of confirm what this would look like cost-wise, and confirm their basically their teleconferencing system, so we know that we'd be able to have a successful RAB with virtual members. And then we can kind of jump into talking about whether we'd want to have our next meeting there once we can kind of confirm that they've got the technology available. And I'll, in the meantime, also look into some fire halls. I'll look into Stevenson Grange. We can talk near the end of the meeting if we want to try to shoot for hosting the May RAB in a different location. That could be maybe a little challenging, because we'll just have to kind of see how quickly we can confirm that. If we could confirm that within 30 days, confirm a different location in 30 days, I think that we'd feel pretty comfortable on our end going down that route. If we weren't able to confirm in 30 days, that would be a little bit tough. We might have to check in with the RAB, but we can talk about that as we get towards the end of the meeting. If RAB members or any community members have other ideas on what might be some ideal locations for future meetings, please let us know. Okay. Next on the docket is new business. I'm going to recommend we go ahead and jump right in and move on to slide number 6. Okay, so first starting off with the project update on the Upland Operable Unit. We've had our first mobilization of the supplemental remedial investigation work plan for the Upland Operable Unit. We were able to complete soil boring and sampling around the east and west sides of Bradford Island. We conducted seep sampling, which is a survey of the shore, looking for basically water coming out of the side of the island. We were able to install monitoring wells and sample them. There was one monitoring well we weren't able to access. This was known as monitoring well number 17. It is in a particularly tricky location. It's in an area where there's very limited access. It's a forested area. There's a small path going up a hill, and in the middle of that path, we have another well. We have what we discovered was a very large, mostly buried boulder. And then on the other sides of the pass, we had trees. So in the end of the day, we couldn't get the equipment we needed up the hill due to the amount of moisture. So we're going to try that again in May is what we're tentatively planning to go back and install that well. We have another mobilization in June where we're going to be going out for some sampling of those wells, and we'll be able to sample monitoring well 17, assuming we're able to install it in May. And then from there, we can look into basically how to handle the second planned sampling of that particular well. So we'll provide more information on that as we can. But overall, the first mobilization was highly successful. On the non-time critical removal action, we just started our 30-day public review of the engineering evaluation and cost analysis yesterday. There was, I have to go see if I can find my notes really quickly. I do apologize, folks. I had to restart my computer just before joining, and unfortunately, I think I lost my list of newspapers where we have either gotten a public notice out in that newspaper, or we have gotten the orders to run public notices. So I think I'll have to follow up with RAB members with a list of that information, and we can also add that to the minutes as a post-meeting note. But we'll have some public notices published in local papers. We have it posted up on the Bradford Island website, as well as there is a specific public notice page for the Portland District Army Corps of Engineers where that is posted as well. And we sent a copy of the public notice out to our full mailing list. We do encourage folks to spread the word on that, send the public notice to others who might be interested. And we're greatly looking forward to everyone's comments. We have an action memo also being prepared for regulator and tribal review right now. The action memo essentially summarizes the information in the engineering evaluation and cost analysis. Oh, I'm sorry, I see a bunch of hands popping up, so I'm going to pause there. Over to Mitch.
Yeah, hey, I was going to suggest there's a paper down here in the Washougal area. It's called the River Talk, I believe is what it's called. Is that on your list?
I don't recall that being on our list. I'll take a note to look into that one.
Yeah, because it's kind of a low, and it really covers a lot of the Camas Washougal area, even clear up into North Bonneville area. So it'd be a really good one to put something in, I think.
Excellent. Thanks for the recommendation.
All right, thank you.
Kate?
Thank you. So you mentioned that you were doing some publications. Did those get posted on the 10th?
We had one posted on the 10th. Kelly or Lisa, do you have that information up in front of you on which one got posted on the 10th?
Yes, I have it. Hold on a sec. There we go. The one that got posted on the 10th was the Columbia Community Connection. And then tomorrow will be the Columbia Gorge News and the Skamania Pioneer.
Okay. I guess I have a concern about the timing with this being announced. I did miss the last meeting, but this came as a little bit of a surprise to receive notification at like 11:30 on the first day of the comment period as a community organizer, looking at a 381-page document and trying to figure out how we're going to help the public understand this and digest it and get to a point where they're capable of making comments on it in an informed way. Generally, when you have an upcoming public comment period, there's, often some advance notice so folks can be prepared for it. But I think, offering the public 30 days to digest this document and then make comments on it feels like an unreasonably short amount of time. And is there a way we can extend that time period out?
I'd have to take it back and look into it. Hard to say on the fly. We did talk about the upcoming public review at the last RAB. At the time, we thought the public review was going to be a little bit sooner. So we talked at the last meeting about the possibility of an ad hoc meeting. Obviously, the timing did not work out on that very well. And we felt the best time to provide the overview was today at the beginning of the public review. Okay. So we do have an overview of that information today, and this information will be recorded and put out on the YouTube channel and the RAB website, which can help folks with understanding the information.
Okay. I mean, as a RAB member, I think it would also be helpful to, I know that we talked about it's coming in November, it might have been in January. At the last meeting, it might have been in March, but to just hear about it day of feels like, especially with such a big document, feels problematic for accessibility.
All right, understood. The best I can offer at the time is just to take that question back. I don't know what the process is for extending public reviews, but I can ask on my team.
I appreciate it. And I'm not coming at you, Megan. I don't think it's your fault. I know y'all are doing the best you can. I just want to advocate for the public.
Understood.
Hey, everybody. This is Rich Francis with EPA. Generally, there is an allowance for an extension of the eco-public comment period. Usually it's extended for, probably another 15 days, another 2 weeks. But if the public makes a request, then generally those can get extended.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for talking to that, Rich. Mitch?
Yeah, I was wondering on the public comment thing, when would the RAB members be able to see what public comment is? I know that we've talked about this before, and it seems like it's quite a journey before the RAB members ever see it. So I'm wondering on this one, would it be something that we could actually view immediately, or how does that work?
Just to make sure I understand the question, you're asking when the RAB would be able to see the public comments?
Said it's open for 30 days.
Correct. Yeah, the document's available for 30 days. It's currently available on the administrative record now. So everyone should have, everyone on the mailing list will have an email about that from me. And we can also provide a link to that. But I think I apologize, it might have cut out a little bit in responding. I think the question was when you would be able to see comments from that. Is that correct?
Yes, like that 30-day window that's open. If somebody writes in a comment tomorrow,
gotcha.
When can the RAB members view that comment?
So the comments, we would have to first scrub for personally identifying information before we can release them. I'll have to go back and ask my PAO about what kind of turnaround we could expect. I'm just going off the top of my head, assuming that we would probably need, I would assume we would need at least a week or two, depending on the amount of comments, to be able to remove all PII before releasing those comments.
Okay, and would they be released directly to the RAB, or is it something that we need to go find?
I believe the process is once we take out all the personal information, is that those would be compiled and it would be part of the admin record. And similar to the ECA, we can send you a direct link to that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Valerie?
Megan, is there a way to skip part of this process with the comments and allow people to use their identifying information and submit comments directly to the RAB, knowing that their personal information would be included? Right.
That's an interesting question. Certainly anything that's delivered to the core, we have, I don't think we have a way to deliver that with personal information. For delivering it directly to a RAB member,
and I think my thought process is there might be people that want to make sure their comments are actually delivered exactly the way they are stating them, and whether there be a way to click a button and say all of your information is going to be out, and you can send directly to all the RAB members, not just individual. That's the question I'm asking.
Right. We don't have anything in place right now for that. Sorry, I just got a suggestion from one of my team. I'm just reviewing real quick. So one of my teammates suggested that on some other projects, sometimes folks will copy or forward to a RAB member when they submit their comments. So that's certainly a possibility. I don't think we currently have a way for folks to reach all RAB members at the same time. I know this request was made previously to the core, if there was a way for the core to provide a single email address that reached all RAB members. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do that through our current security protocols. I think there was previously discussion about whether RAB members wanted to jointly create an email address, but I am not sure where that conversation might have gone. I don't think we came to any decision on that in a public meeting. I'm not sure if that conversation was taken offline at any point.
Okay, thank you. I would like to maybe move this onto the agenda in May to rediscuss this issue, because if there's someone in the community that's engaged and doesn't want to wait for the 30-day comment process and then another process to remove that data, and they're comfortable with their information being presented, I would like to see that if it's submitted tomorrow, quite frankly.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions, comments regarding the ECA public review? Mitch? Mitch, if you're talking, you're on mute.
I would like to second what Valerie's saying, because I think I'm the one that brought it up here. I think I am anyhow, or maybe there's somebody else did, but about the getting these public comments and how do we get to them as a RAB board, the members. It seems like we should be able to, if we have the community telling us one thing as we're walking the streets and asking questions, why is it held back from us when it's sent in as public comment? Why are we not getting that information? And so I would definitely say let's keep this open for discussion.
Yeah, I'll make a note to have further discussion at the May meeting.
Hey everyone, this is Rich Francis again. I think I can talk a little bit about this, right? So I'm sure there is a desire here within this group to see the public comments as they're being posted. And I'm sure that there is a willingness on the parts of people that want to see public comments as they're being posted to allow their own personal information to be out there in the, in on the internet for everyone to see and everyone to view. However, there are those that do not want to have their information shared. And there is it's called a cooling effect, basically, where if somebody knows that they're being recorded and somebody knows that their name is going to be out there taking one position or another, even if it may be a popular position, then they may not even take that position. So the idea that people are going to get to see everyone's comments in real time and get to see who says those things will cause a cooling effect and will cause people to not want to post at all. Now, when it comes to this RAB, you can certainly talk amongst yourselves, and you can certainly, come together as the RAB to post comments, but I would generally defer to past practices and legal guidances on, the idea of personal identifiable information being put out there, regardless of whether somebody would want it to be out there or not, and to allow the people to make comments and have them be scrubbed, by the appropriate well, basically the attorneys mostly are the ones that do it to make sure that people's information aren't getting out there, so they can be forthcoming with their comments.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, I get what Rich is saying, but I mean, it seems like it's as simple as during the comment period that you have a thing that it states you want to be anonymous. It's pretty straightforward at that point that you don't want people to know who you are or what you're saying. But if you're commenting on a public comment period and you say you don't check the box, I want to be anonymous, then therefore we should get the raw material, the feedback from the public. It shouldn't be redacted. It shouldn't be ran over by attorneys and yada, yada, yada. It's not right. And we should get this feedback as it is raw. So that's my thought.
Well, I'm wondering. I'm wondering if you get this feedback, right? If you provide a comment and then you see other people that provide comments, what exactly do you do with that? I mean, the Army Corps will be taking all the comments in, they'll be processing them, and they'll be reviewing them, and they'll be adjusting the ECA accordingly. But if you knew what other people were saying, I don't know how that would influence like this group or anything moving forward to have other people know those things. I'm not sure what's the benefit with creating a new process and a new basically a new process to allow people to see everyone's comments as they're coming in, as opposed to just waiting until it gets released.
My point being is that when I joined the RAB, it was that I could keep the public informed. And which I found out now that this isn't really the truth, that's what the RAB's about. And if we can't get the information to pass on to people in discussion that I have in our community, because it's got to be held back and the lawyers look at it, the EPA look at it, or whoever looks at it.
Yeah, but Mitch, you're talking about discussing with people the comments that other people made. You're not talking about discussing the actual plan and what people think about it. You're saying, well, here's this plan, and your neighbors over here, they said this thing, and your neighbors over here, they said that thing. And so I'm wondering how that's beneficial in this process to talk about what other people are saying.
Hey, folks, I need to pause this just for a second. I just need to throw in a real quick qualifier here, so this can help kind of inform the discussion a little bit. I have to say, as an Army Corps representative, I legally cannot provide comments that contain any personally identifying information. legally cannot release that information without it going through those reviews. So I just want to put it out there that in terms of the Army Corps providing these comments out to folks, as in raw comments that have not been scrubbed of personal info, I legally can't do that. And so I'll let the conversation resume from here. I do want to say that real quick, we do have an overview of the ECA. I just want to have folks keep that in mind as we move forward.
We also have hands up. We have 3 hands up.
The thing is that I guess that I'm getting at is when I joined the RAB, I really truly thought in the deepest part of my heart that I was joining a group of people that we could really keep the public informed on. And I found out today, not today, but even a while back after I found out that certain people can't even have conversations with me, that this just isn't the truth. It's as far from the truth as possible. The RAB is nothing more than a pawn in this system. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right, over to Kate.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that oftentimes comment periods can prove to be really educational for the public. They can be learning experiences. But I think I totally understand the not sharing personal info. I think in some situations and other comment, like state comments and city comments, they've been able to release the comments only, but not the personal info. I don't know if that's an option, but I do understand why there's some desire to have some understanding of the public input, to inform just generally what the public is aware of, things like that. Thanks.
Thanks, Kate. And we can release comments once personal information has been identified. So thanks for bringing that specific point up. Over to Sophia.
Yeah, I just had a question of once they are scrubbed of personal identifying information, what does that timeline look like? Does that, like, is there, if it's a 30-day period, like, would that be something that could be released in a week, 2 weeks after the comment period closes? What does that timeline look like?
I'll have to get back to folks on that exact timeline. I'm expecting that to at least take a week or 2 before we can release all the comments.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in agreement with Kate that I think I don't understand why people would need to see people's information, their first and last names. I don't see how that would influence anything, but I would, if I were to remain on the board, of course, I would love to see any public comments that are coming in, just like Kate had mentioned, like just to kind of get a temperature read on what people are thinking. And I think that can be really helpful in influencing future decisions. I don't see why it would be necessary to have people's personal information to be able to gauge what people are thinking.
Thanks, Sophia. Over to Valerie.
Thank you, Megan. I want to try to reframe what we're talking about. My suggestion was if someone was submitting a comment, they could have the option to provide their personal information and have their comment sent directly to the RAB. Being a resident of Skamania County and having people, perhaps 3 people in Skamania who were interested in the RAB and what's happening at Bradford Island, I'd be very interested in their information to see if they would like to attend these meetings and become more involved. It's about community and connections. That seems to make a lot of sense to me. I actually am shocked that we're having this discussion, and I find the entire framework of how this is being run to be slightly ridiculous. I mean, the Corps is managing this site, but at the same time, you're likely the responsible party. So it seems like we are trying specifically to avoid getting information out to the community. And as a RAB member, I would love to know who those folks are to get more people involved.
Okay. I see Victoria Frankney has her hand up next. Victoria is one of our Office of Council members for the Corps. Victoria, go ahead. Victoria, you're talking, you're on mute.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. There were 2 layers of unmuting myself that I had to get through. Yeah, I just, Megan introduced me. I'm with Portland District Office of Council. I just want to provide some clarification. Folks can, of course, at any time as they're providing comments of their own volition, provide those comments to other folks if it's going to help and, you know, inform those folks. So there's nothing that's restricting that. Everyone can obviously communicate any sort of comments that they may provide to this RAB or to other individuals that may inform those. But as it kind of comes through our process, we have an obligation to make sure we're protecting any sensitive information.
Thanks, Victoria. Over to Pam.
Hi, thanks. I understand the process of getting the comments back and having them reviewed. I understand that, but it may help us if we have a schedule of, you know, the time documents are reviewed and when to expect. It seems like it's a lot of, you know, response instead of getting in front of, like maybe a little bit more of a schedule that can be communicated to us so we know what to expect and when to expect them. So hearing that takes maybe a week or 2 to get the comments together, maybe if we know when the document went out, when it's expected to have comments, when the comments will be supplied to the RAB, that kind of schedule would be helpful, I think. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. And over to Mitch.
Yeah, the lady that was speaking before Pam, she had mentioned that, and it's the issue that I brought up before, but we can't get past that hurdle. She said something about that, well, they can send it to the other RAB members, but they can't because they don't know who we are. There isn't an address to get to us as a board or commissioner, whatever we're supposed to be. There's no way that these people that are doing this can get that to us because it's the information isn't provided. And I think it was you that told me that you guys could not, Army Corps could not give us a RAB email address so that everyone could see what's going on. Because it works really well when the whole board can see it. The planning commission has it in the different counties and cities and whatnot. And you send it to them. You don't send it directly to each individual person. You send it to them as a group. And I think that's going to be a hang up for us for quite a while until we can figure out how to get around it. And so that's all I got on that one.
Thanks, Mitch. And yeah, you're correct. I have provided back before that we're unable to like make a email for the RAB members to access. We did look into that, and unfortunately, that's not something we can do. We don't have an ability to create email addresses for non-Army Corps of Engineers employees.
Right. So basically what the lady prior to Pam said
Yeah,
really isn't the truth because they can't get a hold of us.
If RAB, we did talk about the possibility of whether RAB members wanted to create some other email address that they would have access to. So those are still options. Certainly there's a lot of availability for that if folks want to kind of have that discussion.
Okay, then yeah, I would motion to set that to the next meeting and for discussion then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do have a note here that that's a requested topic for next time. So we'll have that on for May. Okay. Not seeing any other hands up right now, so I'm going to try to move us along here so we can talk about the overview of the ECA. Do want to let folks know that we're still preparing the action memo. Action memo is going to summarize the contents of the ECA. It's also what allows the Army Corps of Engineers to award a contract for the non-time critical removal action. So that is on its way. We are running those in parallel. So I want to be like super clear with folks. We're running them in parallel to try to award a contract as soon as possible. That said, if there are significant comments from the public on the ECA, you know, that could change, that could lead to changes in the ECA, which would lead to changes in the action memo. So I just want folks to be aware that we're keeping a close eye on those two paths, trying to get them to run as quickly as possible, but without shortchanging the public review and without shortchanging folks' ability to make meaningful comments that could be incorporated. So that review would still be happening as we go along. The next topic that we have coming up here is an actual overview of the ECA itself. So I am going to turn it over to our contractor, Jacobs, to present that to folks.
Yes, my name is Jeremiah Knuth. I'm with Jacobs and the project engineer on working on behalf of the Corps of Engineers, and I'll just be taking you through our plan here with the ECA. Next slide, please. This is slide number 8 for those that are following along. So a non-time critical removal action will be completed for the Upland OU to address sources of contamination that are both current and imminent threats. Those include landfill waste debris, sandblast grit on the island, spent bullet fragments, and contaminated soils. As part of that process, we've developed the engineering evaluation and cost analysis and prepared the document. For removal and to evaluate removal action alternatives as part of the Integra process. The Upland OU includes the landfill area of potential concern, or AOPC, the bulb slope AOPC, the sandblast area AOPC, and the pistol range AOPC. So those are 4 sub areas on Bradford Island that we'll be looking at. The ECA evaluate each of the removal actions proposed based on effectiveness, implementability, and cost. Next slide, please. Number 9. This picture here basically is a map of the eastern end of Bradford Island, and in the brown there shows where the historical landfill resides. The green area is what we call the bulb slope AOPC. The red area is what we call the sandblast area AOPC, and the purple area is the former pistol range. Next slide, please. So we'll start off with the landfill AOPC, just a little overview. Disposal activities occurred there at that landfill from 1942 to 1982. Debris or materials, expected or known to be reside within the landfill include electrical equipment and debris, asbestos-containing materials, empty buckets, drums and cans, general construction and demolition debris, some burned debris, and a typical household and municipal miscellaneous waste. There's been a long history of investigations there, including that has confirmed that past disposal practices have impacted the soil with chemicals associated with the waste, including metals, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, pesticides, herbicides, polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs, and semi-volatile organic compounds. And this picture here on the bottom is just shows the landfill. It's not, as you can see, it's not a significantly large area relative to what it kind of looks like on the map. Next slide, please. For the landfill AOPC, we evaluated 3 alternatives. The first is the no action alternative, and that's that's required by CERCLA, and that's pretty typical for these kind of valuations. The second would be a removal alternative, which in this case would include removal of the source contamination, which is the waste debris, as well as contaminated soil, on-site landfilling, or I'm sorry, off-site landfilling, so moving the waste to an off-site landfill, backfilling, slope reduction and stability, shoreline revetment, and site restoration. The last alternative, the L2, is our source containment alternative. In this case, the alternative would include an engineered soil cap, so placing a layer of soil over the site, limited slope reduction and stabilization, a shoreline revetment, institutional controls, and long-term operation and maintenance of the alternative. Next slide, number 12. So the recommended alternative for landfill AOPC was alternative L1, which is our removal alternative. Where we'll be excavating and removing the contaminated sources, which is the waste debris, and contaminated soil exceeding project action limits. Those waste materials would be transported, disposed of off-site, and then the slope on the, I guess it'd be the north and kind of the northeastern portions of the shoreline, the slopes would be reduced to minimize mass wasting. And then the riprap and revetment would be placed along the river shoreline to prevent further erosion and wave action along the shoreline. And then, of course, general site restoration, including revegetation of the site. Next slide, please. Moving on to our next site, the bulb slope AOPC. Bulb slope, as we like to call it, is a fan-shaped accumulation of glass and electrical debris that extends from down the bluff into the Columbia River. Historical disposal practices are the primary sources of contamination at this site, including the glass debris, concrete rubble, and electrical equipment and debris. The placement of the waste has resulted in soil contamination with very low levels of lead, mercury, and PCBs. And the removal action at the landfill AOPC will require extended usage of the existing access road that runs along the south side of the bulb slope on top of the berm. And crosses the bulb slope AOPC. I see we have a question there. We'll take one. Just pause real quick for the question.
This is Mitch. Hey, I was wondering if we could back up to slide number 9. I do believe that's the one that has the map of the areas. Yeah. Okay, so on this, out on the easterly end of it, the brown area, you had said that was the landfill from 1942 to 1982.
That's correct. That's what we know as far as the period of historical disposal.
Okay. And so my question is, in 1942, was the water level any different than it is today there behind the dam in that upper dam pool?
Well, that's a great question. It's interesting that the dam pool is obviously very variable based on the flow conditions at the dam, depending on, and my understanding is that, currently the way the dam configured, there's three scenarios depending on which powerhouses and the spillways open or not, and so that's all very controllable. I know that the dam had a different configuration prior to its current configuration, and so basically the boundaries that we know here are based on historical, geophysical, and other investigation work that's been completed.
That's kind of what my thought was, that I'm guessing that upper dam pool, the high water line is probably pretty the same as what it was in 1942 is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, that would be correct after the construction of the modern
That's
dam.
kind of what I was had under the understanding. That dam pool hasn't changed a lot since they put the Bonneville Dam in. So the question I have is, in this area right here, this landfill from 1942 to 1982, if this was a waste disposal site, how could they possibly got rid of all their stuff in that small little of an area without creating like 100 feet of debris? I'm missing something here on that one. I don't quite. I think it's something that we need to bring up and discuss further. And I'm going to kind of shy off of that for right now because I think I've made my point that it doesn't make logical sense that from 1942 to 1982, this was their landfill site for Army Corps of Engineers or Bonneville BPA, whoever. And then moving on to the green area of the bulb slide area, looking at that, and we have the same question again. Okay, if we're going to go in there, we're going to fix this thing. You're talking about mitigating the slopes. You're talking about doing this, and the area that would be where the dam is itself, it isn't. It's just right off the picture. I mean, if that picture probably was 2 inches more, that you see the face of the dam. So therefore, everything that went into that green area that slid down and sloughed into that river is now below Bonneville Dam. I mean, I don't know how it couldn't got sucked through that gate down there. And so the question is on the green area, when you fix this or correct it, is it in any, I didn't see it written in anything that was suggested to do that we're going to build a coffer dam around this thing and reach down there and actually remove all that material within 100 feet of this bulb slide area. I haven't seen any language about that at all, but it's something that really needs to be looked at because you can't just fix the surface when this stuff has been leaching down the hill into that river for years. And then we can move past that because that's my thought on that deal. And then we get into the red area where the sandblast area and whatnot has been at. When I did the walkthrough as a RAB member, I think we were already RAB members at that point or getting ready to be. But looking at that sandblast area, if you look at like the map that I'm looking at, I don't know, maybe I'm getting a little twisted on the map itself. But if you look at where the old sandblast areas where we walked and looked at, that there's this concrete structure that had a big open bottom in it. And then you look at that, and then you look at the topography of the land, but now there's these big beams and everything set up across there. But if you look at that, it appears to me that whatever sandblast grit and stuff that was there for years and years and years pretty much got shoved right down the hill into the water right there. And that's something that I think needs to be looked at and addressed and looked and seen if this is a possibility. I keep asking and asking and asking for aerial photos. I don't get aerial photos. There doesn't seem to be anything. I've been told that the records weren't kept very well. But someplace Army Corps of Engineers has aerial photos of this area, the topography of it. And so we need to know, was this stuff just shoved down into the water and then sucked through the face of the dam and now it's distributed downstream everywhere? So that's kind of where I'm at with the red area and the pistol range. The purple area is another really one that's really hard to follow. So if you look at it from what I'm looking at, this pistol range may have, let's use a number as 100,000 rounds laying there in this berm of dirt. And if you look at below Bonneville Dam, the amount of lead that's on the bottom of that river from sturgeon fishing, salmon fishing, shad fishing, why are we targeting and how much money are we going to spend on this pistol range when we have way more issues going on in the river bottom already? So that's kind of where I'm at on the purple area. And I think these are all things that we need to be brought up in the next meeting and get further clarification from Army Corps or the EPA on the reasonings why we're spending so much money, but yet not doing something as simple as a coffer dam around that bulb area and then removing all of that material instead of only fixing what's above the water line. It just doesn't make sense to me. So anyhow, I'm done with that one.
So there were a lot of comments in there and a lot of questions. This sounds like a desire to talk about those further. I think to start a little bit ahead. There's quite a lot of other information to present here, which may help provide some information there. So Mitch, was there any specific question you're asking to be answered right now?
No, not right now. I'm just wanted to bring up the point because it was brought up. The map is here. The slide 9 is here. It's just a perfect opportunity for everybody in the RAB and the people that are outside the RAB to be able to see what I'm looking at. And it just, a lot of it doesn't make sense. So.
All right, well, we'll continue along. Hopefully they'll provide some more information on what the plan is here to move forward.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, yeah, kind of picking up on slide 14 here. This is very similar to the slide 9 that we were just looking at. Here we're highlighting the landfill access road that crosses through the bulb slope AOPC and terminates at the landfill. Next slide, 15, please. The landfill AOPC access road will be refurbished and upgraded to withstand frequent use by heavy equipment. It's part of the action at the landfill. Slope will be stabilized. The bulb slope will be stabilized as part of the road replacement, requiring excavation of the waste debris and impacted soil at the bulb slope. Contamination at the bulb slope will be removed in conjunction with the landfill AOPC removal action, which will include excavation and removal of the contaminated source materials and the debris, as well as any intermingled contaminated soil, transporting that debris and soil off-site to an off-site landfill, installing again a riprap revetment along the river shoreline. Again, general site restoration include vegetation, and unique to the bulb slope, we'll be putting in this slope stabilization using a geosynthetic cellular confinement system, sometimes called a geogrid, and then backfilled just to further stabilize that slope. Next slide, number 16. Moving on to what was our red area, the sandblast area AOPC. This area is, looks like is the largest the area AOPC. It was used for sandblasting operations and equipment painting from 1958 to 1988. There's the presence of spent sandblast grit identified adjacent to the former sandblast building. And it was also used for industrial equipment laydown, transformer maintenance and disassembly, and hazardous waste storage. The sandblast area, we're focusing on 2 specific areas of the sandblast area AOPC, which includes what we're calling the sandblast grit storage area, or SGSA. It's a triangular storage area located northeast of the former sandblast building, which contains a 6-inch layer of visible spent sandblast grit that contains metal, and it's overlaying an asphalt pavement. That lower right corner kind of shows you generally that area. It's relatively small when you see it. But the area in the white dotted line is what we're talking about. And then the other area is what we're calling the equipment laydown area north, or ELA north. That area is an industrial equipment and laydown area located along the bank of the Columbia River, which is in storage activities has resulted in surface and shallow surface contamination with metals and PAHs. Next slide, slide 17. And then here's a map, just kind of generally showing you the layout of our 2 sub areas that we're looking at. as well as in reference to the former sandblast building and the river itself on the north side of the Bradford Island. Slide 18, please. For the sandblast area AOPC, again, we evaluated three rural action alternatives. Again, the no action alternative as required by CERCLA. A removal alternative, which includes the targeted removal of the contaminated soil and spent sandblast grit, off-site landfilling, backfilling, shoreline revetment with a vegetative barrier or buffer, and then asphalt pavement, and then general site restoration. And the third alternative is a containment alternative, and that includes targeted removal of the spent sandblast grit at the SGSA, an engineered soil cover asphalt cap along over the area ELA North, a shoreline revetment with a vegetative buffer, site restoration, institutional controls, and then again long-term operation and maintenance of those features. Next slide, please. The recommended alternative for the sandblast area AOPC was alternative S1, which is our removal alternative, which includes the targeted removal of contaminated soil and spent sandblast grit. So that basically the ELA North will receive targeted excavation removal of contaminated soil and in excess of the project action limits. The visible spent sandblast grit layer overlaying the asphalt pavement near the former sandblast building will be removed. All of that will be transported and disposed off-site at off-site landfill. A riprap revetment will be placed along the water's edge of ELA North, and a vegetative barrier will be placed above that. And then the areas that will continue to be used for equipment storage will be asphalt paved, and then otherwise just general site restoration and revegetation would occur. Next slide, please. Moving on to the pistol range. The pistol range on the south side is located on the south side of Bradford Island. It was used by the U.S. Army for small arms practice between the late 1940s and the early 1970s. There's surface and subsurface soils that have been impacted by metals from the historical fire range activities. Next slide. Actually, I'm sorry, go back to slide 20, please. The picture there on the left, that's showing the berm, the backstop of the existing pistol range, and this graphic kind of just generally illustrates where we would see the contamination both in the berm and near the firing point. And I forgot to mention too that historically there was a firing shed, wooden firing shed there at the beginning of the range as well, which has since been abandoned and is just a bunch of leftover wood that's been rotting there. So all that would get removed. Next slide, please. Again, we evaluate three alternatives. Again, the no action alternative, as well as a removal alternative, P1, which includes the removal of contaminated soil, as well as the former firing shed and the backstop, off-site landfilling, backfilling, and site restoration. And alternative P2, similar to the other areas, would just include a engineered soil cover. So rather than excavating, we would cover the site with a soil cover. Basically site restoration with revegetation, institutional controls, and long-term operation and maintenance. Next slide, please. Similar to, you see a similar theme here, but the recommended alternative for the pistol range would be the removal alternative, where we would be removing the wooden remains of the former firing shed and the backstop, excavating and removing all the contaminated soil in excess of the project action limits, transporting those materials off-site backfilling the excavation, and then restoring the site, including revegetation and contouring to the existing landscape. Next slide, please. With that, that's just a high level overview of the ECA. Again, as we've discussed, we're getting this 30-day public comment period for the ECA, and again, the recommended alternatives for the upland OU included alternative L1, which is the removal of the source contamination and contaminated soil, offsite landfilling, backfilling, slope reduction and stabilization, shoreline revetment, and site restoration. And then as part of that, we'll also be taking action at the bulb slope AOPC, which would include refurbishment and restabilization of that slope as part of upgrades to the landfill access road. With that, we include excavation of the waste debris and impacted soil there. Alternative S1 would be implemented for the sandblast area. Again, contaminated soil and spent sandblast grit would be removed. Again, offsite landfilling, backfilling, shoreline protection placed, an asphalt surface for continued use as a storage area and restoration. And then similarly for the Pistol Range, again, excavation, landfilling, backfilling, and site restoration. With that, we'll just open it up for questions.
Okay, over to Mitch.
Yeah, I was wondering, I think it was slide 20, if I remember right, on the Pistol Range again. Is there any way that we, the RAB members, or even the public, can find out how much money's going to be spent on removing that, and really what the bang for the buck is, considering and knowing the amount of lead that's in that river? Is it something that's really that necessary? I mean, what's the priority? Is it 1 to 10? It seems like to me we're wasting a lot of money on something that probably shouldn't really be targeted, knowing everything else that's going on in that area. So that's kind of where I'm at is do we get to find out what this costs, or how does the public know what's going on?
The ECA does have some estimates on like projections on what it would cost to perform those removal actions. So that information will be there for each of the alternatives.
And is it in that public record package, or where do we find it?
Yeah, it's within the ECA itself. It's in the document. Okay,
so it says in there what it's going to cost, or the approximate cost to remove the Pistol Range.
Yeah, it provides an analysis of that cost. It is a cost estimate.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody know right offhand what that is?
For the Pistol Range, actually, I'll be clear. For all the options, I don't know them off the top of my head. They're like a range of costs.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, over to Kate.
Thank you. I have a few questions about the non-time critical removal action. The first is about timelines. What are the estimates for timelines for when the removal actions will occur and be complete? And I don't know if I should list all three of my questions at once or do one at a time.
I can start with this first one. So for timelines, we do have some estimates on how long we think each particular action would take. It is really difficult to figure out when those timelines are going to be before we award the contract. Right now, we're trying to award the contract this spring, essentially as soon as we can. We're projecting the soonest we would be able to award is early May at this point. From there, we basically have to work with the contractor awarded to see how soon we can get them out in the field. We're estimating around 4 to 5 months between awarding a contract and getting the work plan finalized. And at that point, we're following the contractor's recommendations on how soon they could get out. Winter is going to be really tough to get folks out. So we just kind of have to get their feedback on if it's possible to get out during rainy seasons like this. Pistol range and sandblast areas are probably the easiest times to get out in rainy seasons. When it comes to the bulb slope and the landfill, which I know for a lot of folks, landfill is the highest priority. We really need to wait till drier seasons, and especially to when water levels are lowest, so that we can effectively do the non-time critical removal action and all the work that's going to go into the alternative without affecting basically below water like aquatic biota and stuff like that.
Okay, and the reinforcement of the road is planned to be completed in time for this timeline you're mentioning?
Yeah, that would be all part of that timeline.
Okay, okay, great. My second question is about the native plant removal, or the existing vegetation removal. And I know that there was mention of restoration. I was just curious if, I mean, I know there's some fairly mature trees out there. Is the plan to try to, I was just wondering, like, is it going to clear out all the, like when they remove the landfill, is that going to clear out that whole area of trees and then they're planting saplings, or like how's that restoration going to look?
Jeremy, I'll probably need you to talk to that a little bit in further detail.
Yeah. I think for most of these areas, any mature vegetation like trees would not be impacted. And if they would be, to the very minimum. Now, if you're talking about some of the trees, maybe on the north side of the landfill example, where we'll have to be doing some slope reduction, yeah, those would probably be impacted, just so we get the right grades there. Otherwise, the current berms are just too steep, and soil's falling into the river. So we want to prevent that. So, but all in all, yeah, some of those details are still yet to be refined as the work progresses. But the idea is that we would be revegetating with native species, appropriate for the island.
I'll add to that a little bit that a lot of the species that will be removed as part of that of these removal actions is going to be the native, or excuse me, not the native, the invasive Himalayan blackberry. It's really extensive in some of our areas.
Great, thank you for that. And my last question for now is, in reading through, I'm wondering if you can help us understand why there's not testing for PCBs in the landfill area.
Sure, I can talk to that a little bit. So I'll try to hit the kind of overarching like high points. It is kind of complex. We've been talking about this a bit with regulators and MOU tribes as well. So I'm going to do my best with answering this, and then I may have to lean on some of my other colleagues to fill in some additional details. For the landfill, so the ECA is based off of a risk assessment. So like the options we're looking at, the contaminants concern, of ecological concern, they are based on a risk assessment that we did, I think originally back in 2016 and revised in 2017, if I'm recalling my timeline correctly. The landfill, we didn't have like a significant characterization of PCBs in that area. We know that there's possible for PCBs in the landfill, but currently we don't have a lot of evidence that leads us to believe that there's a significant PCB issue that would be driving the removal of that landfill itself. What we do know is that as we are able to remove contamination from the area, that's going to incidentally remove PCBs that could be in that landfill. We do know that because we are awarding a specific type of contract called the cost reimbursable contract, we know that if we see specific like materials, equipment, like barrels, things like that, that we're not expecting necessarily to see in the landfill, we know that we'll have contract options to go and remove solid waste like that. And we also know that we'll be characterizing all the waste that we're removing from the landfill, as well as all the other areas. And we will have to do sampling of those wastes to ensure they're going to the correct landfill, essentially, like an appropriately licensed landfill. We'll be able to kind of get into the nitty gritty of what that actual testing will be like as we bring our non-time critical removal action contractor on board. So there will be a little bit more refining of those details of how we're going to look at that site, and that can include, like, we can get that information back to give us more information about PCBs in the landfill. But that's kind of like the overarching. Does that help, Kate? Do you have some follow-up question regarding that?
So essentially, we're going to find out on the backside whether there was PCBs in there by testing the waste.
We definitely will know as we test the waste. We expect that we'll be required to test for PCBs. I'd be really surprised if we weren't required, but we can. We also. Sorry, I got a little caught off more by a comment that popped up in the chat there. So yeah, there will be that confirmation testing of all our excavated waste, and that can kind of give us a better idea of what's there. And then, of course, as we pull up actual solid waste, that can give us an idea too.
Okay. And that would be like a full congener set for the testing.
It would probably. I think I heard. I can't think of the right word. Jeremiah, can you help me? I think there is a different testing that would be most likely for landfill.
I'll jump in here, Megan. This is Jay Wilburn with
Thanks,
Jacobs.
Jay.
Yeah, so the plan there will be, there's confirmation sampling to compare for the cleanup levels, but then the plan is to also collect some additional, what we would call characterization sampling that would look for things like PCB, and those would be congener analysis. And then now, as far as waste disposal goes, those may or may not necessarily be congeners. Likely, a landfill wouldn't require a congener analysis, but there would be in situ samples that would be collected for congener PCBs.
Okay, and when I guess this made me think of another question. When the description I read in the site management plan said that the waste at the landfill is not suspected to be any deeper than 15 feet in depth, but the removal action, the samples collected were between, the substrate samples were between 1 and 10 feet. I'm just curious, in terms of the removal action, how deep are you planning on going at the landfill? Like, does it go below the water line or?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, the depth of the excavation, it below 10 feet, it's a little unknown, but we're fully expecting to go on to 15 feet or until we hit refusal at bedrock or we hit groundwater. If we start getting into a pit full of water, then that gets real expensive real quick, and just a lot higher level of effort.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I appreciate the explanation about the PCBs. I think it's really confusing for, the public, especially when it's like, wait, they're not testing for PCBs. Isn't that why you can't eat the fish? So
Right.
Wanted to get that out there for the public.
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to also kind of throw in, which I don't know if it's been clear with the RAB or not, is that, the Antiqua is not necessarily the final remedy. And So, it was only intended to address the, kind of an imminent risk. And so and it's also not intended to address the groundwater. But, there'll be additional reporting and risk evaluations that after the INTICRA that will be after that.
And that will inform the supplemental remedial investigation. Is that
correct? Yeah, the
okay?
data that we'll collect with this INTICRA will be incorporated into the supplemental remedial investigation, which would end up being followed by a feasibility study.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, over to Mitch.
Yeah, I think Kate brought up a couple pretty good points. The one that I keep falling back on is that this landfill was from 1942 to 1982. Okay, so, and it's only, in what I understand, it's probably looking when I walked it, it's got to be less than a half an acre. Is that correct? Or is it an acre, 2 acres? I think it's only like a half an acre. So my question is, how is it even possible for Army Corps of Engineers or BPA to have this as their landfill site for that whole complex since 1942, when the water level, which we discussed earlier, that mean high water hasn't really changed since the first dam went in 42 or whenever it was completed. So therefore it's impossible, like the one guy just suggested, you can't get down to 15 feet because you're going to get flooded out. There's no way that ground, it isn't like they had a big hollowed out spot on this island. They filled in a little bit, but some other place on the Corps of Engineers property, BPA property, as I suggested earlier, last meeting, is that the dump site, the true landfill, was on top of that new set of locks that got dug out and packed up and made Goose Island. That's what I think went on. There's no possible way that this landfill that you're talking about today was the landfill for that whole dam complex. It's just, I can't see that functioning clear to 1982, when in all reality, wasn't the second powerhouse quite a bit before 82? So therefore that opened up the Hamilton Island, which is a whole nother debacle, landfill. And so how can we sit here and tell the public that this is where our landfill was at Bonneville Dam? It's just not the truth. And I have a hard time with it. And I think we need this opened up for further discussion. I think that we also need to know what were the sea levels of that island, as Army Corps is very good at surveying, to know what they were back in 42 and how far east that island used to go. Because what I remember, that island used to go east upriver, or upstream, I should say. I don't know for sure what direction it is. But what I remember, years and years and years, it went up further than what it appears to be today. So how much of that old landfill actually is washed down the river? So, I mean, that's something that I think we need to open up for more discussion and clarification from Army Corps and EPA both, is to get us the information that we need to have. So that's where I'm at on that landfill. Thank you.
Okay. There was a lot of comment there. I know some of this we've talked about before, particularly Hamilton Island. So we won't dig into that too hard. I don't have the actual dates in front of me. I just want to clarify the Goose Island was the dredging material is comprised of the dredging material from creating the new locks, which, if memory serves, was in the 80s or 90s. So just providing that little bit of context into that comment. But as said before, we know it's comprised of dredge materials. We have no records of there ever being used as a landfill from whenever that island was created on, whether that was like the 80s, 90s period. Any other questions, comments
Or-
on the information that we discussed here today regarding the ECA?
Carl has his hand up, Megan.
Oh, I apologize. I couldn't see that from my view. Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm on the Zoom meeting and your emails came in at 10 minutes to 6. So I don't know what's going on with my system. So I apologize if you answered this already, but just wondering where the removed materials may go when they leave the site is my first question.
Yeah, so all the materials will get tested so we understand what landfills we can place them in. There'll be landfills that are actually licensed for specific types of contamination. And that'll be further developed in the work plan for the non-time critical removal action.
Okay, I would guess that maybe a substantial portion would have to go to Arlington. Isn't that our only regional hazardous waste landfill?
I know that I don't have the information to speculate on that. Jeremiah or Jay, do you have any thoughts on what that could be? I know we don't know what it will be.
So
Yeah.
I'll go ahead, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, Arlington is the kind of the logical choice, but I believe there's facilities also in Idaho that could possibly accept some of this waste, and then we expect that some of this to be non-hazardous waste, just so that could go into just any landfill really. So it's a lot of it will depend on economics and space and things like that. So.
Okay, thank you. And I guess second, sort of following up on Mitch's question, is there any evidence or information in the record to show that landfill materials, also were removed from the site in any instances? Left the property, left the site, or have you done a record search, have sought out any kind of information to shed any light on that issue? Or is it, as was suggested, the sole location for landfilling materials, depositing materials was that relatively small stretch that we saw at the east end of the island?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those records, we did analysis and searching for them as part of the preliminary assessment that was, I don't have the date in front of me. It was done some time ago. And I know you asked another question in addition to that. I'm sorry, Carl, could you restate the other question or say again the other question?
Well, I think you answered it, but yeah, just as in searching your records, has there been any indication that material ever left the site to be deposited at off-site landfills anywhere up and down the gorge, or did it all stay within the project boundaries?
Right. Thank you for repeating that. I don't believe we have any record that shows any material was ever removed from the landfill specifically and taken to another location. There were previous removal actions done for waste that was placed directly into the river. And I believe those removal actions took place between 2007 and 2009. I don't know the exact place where those materials were disposed of.
And those materials in those years, weren't those like the PCB transformers themselves?
Correct. Yeah, there was transformer, industrial waste, and stuff like that. Yeah, there was three piles on the North Shore, the northeast side of Bradford Island.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Megan, I also wanted to clarify the timeline a little bit. Bonneville Dam was completed in 1938, and this landfill that we're talking about was used beginning in 1942, with the greatest use in 1952. And so, any waste that was generated during construction is not likely there. But there's records. The records get kind of sparse back then.
Right. Thanks, Jeremiah. I think I had seen that Kate's hand was up. Kate, did you have anything you wanted to?
No, I think my question got answered. Thank you.
Great. All right, over to Mitch. Mitch, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Yeah, hey, I've heard the comment before that between county, city, municipalities, everybody, that we really didn't keep good records back then. So I guess my question is, when did we start keeping good records? When can we track off-site material leaving the Bonneville Dam Army Corps site? When do we know things were hauled away from there? So that we can say, okay, where did it go and what was it during that time period? But as of today, I asked the question and I get the answer that we didn't keep good records back then. Well, that doesn't, okay, let's say we didn't keep good records back then, but when did we start keeping good records? At what year was it that we can go back and say, okay, yep, we hauled this debris off of a construction site or off of a transformer site after we dumped them in the river when we decided that that's not a good idea anymore? When did we start removing them to another site? I mean, there must be some point somewhere along the line that we did keep good records. And that's kind of where I would like to see is when did we start keeping good records and what was going on then? And then if you take that question and you go into, okay, how many tons of waste left there on a yearly basis, we can kind of go backtrack and go like, oh, here's our records. We were dumping, 100 tons of toxic waste per year and, 300 tons of just regular debris that is not contaminated. But at least we can say, okay, if we're dumping 100 tons a year of contaminated waste, it went here in 1976, then you can almost bet that prior to that 100 tons was going some other place. So that's gonna, I mean, if that makes sense, I mean, it's something that I think we need to further discussion. I think it needs to be brought up again. I think as a RAB, we need clarification on when the records actually were kept good.
Yeah, I don't have that particular date right in front of me. And for the folks that are departing, thank you so much for your time tonight. I don't have that particular date of like exactly when those records started to ramp up specifically at Bonneville. A lot of it was in conjunction with CERCLA coming into law, which I believe was 1980. Rich might have a better idea of that though. I don't know if Rich is still on though.
Well, Sarah was signed in 1984, but CERCLA was, 1980.
Okay. Thanks, Rich. Mitch, I see your hand is still up. Do you have a follow-up?
Oh, nope. I thought it went away. I guess not.
No worries. That's a-okay. All right, so we are a couple minutes past time. I would like to wrap this discussion if there's no further questions from the RAB. The QR code that's currently on your screen for those that were able to get into the online teams, this will link you directly to the ECA. For those that are not able to see your screen, if you are on the public mailing list, you will have received an email from me that also has that QR code in the body of the email and also attached in the public notice. And if neither of those things are working for you, if you Google Bradford Island USACE and go to our website, the information is at the top of the page. Mitch, I see your hand up one more time. Go ahead.
Yeah, before we get out of here tonight, we had discussed earlier in an email that we'd have ample time to discuss some other things that I wanted to bring up tonight. So do we still have time to do that or should I wait for the next meeting?
We actually have like a lot of material that was left in this. At this point, I think what's the best is, since we have a few RAB members dropping off, we might want to do a quick check-in with our RAB members to see whether we want to keep pushing on or whether we want to save these for another date. A quick just rundown of the topics: where to present status on the River OU and other project updates. to discuss the SMP, which I would love to discuss in May so we can actually have some more time to talk about that. That'll also give more time for folks to review the SMP before we go into those discussions. And then, of course, to talk about future RAB meetings. Let's not let's not step through the slides right now, please.
I guess my question would be then, since we still have further discussion, maybe it's best that we do hold that meeting that we talked about that could be held in between so that we can get caught up on this stuff, and then I can bring up the points that I want to bring up and see if we can bring that up for further discussion. Because I think is what I'd like to do is motion for an executive session. I have some stuff I'd like to discuss with the RAB members that I don't believe some of the other members that are in this meeting need to hear about right now.
I want to double check I understand the meaning. When you say executive session, are you talking about a closed meeting that would only be RAB members?
Yes.
Okay. RAB members are, of course, welcome to meet with themselves. And I can be out of that meeting. But for having a RAB meeting itself, these are meant to be public meetings. So we want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, I mean,
if there's if folks RAB members want to talk privately amongst themselves, of course you can do that.
That's what I meant. I didn't mean to have a special executive session meeting, and just to have an executive session during the next RAB meeting. And since how we have a lot to discuss, it's got missed tonight, that it seems like we'd be better off to go back to the 30-day meetings, because we do have material to talk about and not wait 60 days at a time, because there's some things I'd like to tell the RAB members that I think they're totally unaware of right now that they need to know about. And I got in trouble for trying to CC everybody in until I've been told I can't do that, which I don't think is exactly correct. But so I'm motioning for an executive session in the next meeting, and hopefully we can do it in 30 days and not 60 days.
Okay, so would you like to make a motion to have the next RAB meeting in 30 days then?
Yes, I would.
I second.
Any discussion from RAB members? Oh, actually, do we have a quorum?
Probably not.
I'm just.
We don't.
We don't.
Can we do this via email?
Yes, we can. Great point, Kate. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to go ahead and write myself a note on my next day in the office to email the RAB members that this was requested, so everyone can have that discussion, and we can do, I guess we can do an offline vote to have the RAB at the next 30-day point. Then that would be, let me just double check that real quick. The next 30-day would be April 8th, would be the date of that.
What day of the week is that?
That would be the second Tuesday. We can talk about other days, I guess, for ad hoc meetings.
Okay.
We're generally trying to keep to that second Tuesday of the month.
Sure. April 8th, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tentative. Yeah.
All right, great. So I will send out a meeting. My next day in the office is Thursday, so I'll be, I'm writing myself a note right now to send out that email Thursday morning. Okay.
If the meeting would be in person or online.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that as well.
It'd be a hybrid.
All right, so a motion for a hybrid meeting on April 8th. Okay, got it. Thanks, Mitch. Okay, with that, my recommendation is to close the meeting. We are about 8 minutes past right now. I apologize that we couldn't get through everything today. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that one.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second. All in favor? We don't have a quorum.
Aye.
Thank you, folks. I immediately forgot we had a quorum. I really appreciate everyone staying a little late. Thank you for all your comments and suggestions tonight and for your time.
And hopefully the Teams thing can get worked out to where it functions properly.
Yes, I'm not sure what happened tonight. It could have been a firewall issue that we had on the core side. It could have been affecting the link.
Yeah, or
I'm
just
not
the
sure.
World Wide Web.
Right.
It's-
Yeah.
it's-
I had some issues accessing myself. So I have no idea.
It's Elon Musk.
Yeah, there you go. Blame it on him.
Gosh darn it.
All right.
All right.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you. We'll see you or talk to you or hear from you soon. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
folks.
you.
Everybody.
You.
Yep. Bye.